would have been here earlier.
Okay. Gonna start the regular City of Coachella Indio Waste Transfer Station Joint Powers Authority meeting for Monday, March 24th. Today is March 24th. The approval of the agenda. At this time, the authority may announce any items being pulled from the agenda or continue to another day to request the moving of any item on the agenda. Any changes to the agenda, staff, or?
Nope. I move approval of the agenda.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion second. And you vote using your little fancy roll call? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, call to order and the roll call for record of Commissioner Vice Chair Miller is not present. There's no Pledge of Allegiance, is there, for this? Do you have? Okay. So, but before we go, we're going to pledge allegiance. We can have Glada lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Guns come. Okay. Okay. So move on to the approval of the minutes. Minutes for the Coachella Indio Waste Station for September 30th.
So move.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call. Okay, item number 4, public comments. The public may address the authority on any item of interest to the public that is not on the agenda but is within the subject matter jurisdiction thereof. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Open the public comments at 9:05. Seeing no public comments, we'll close public comments at 9:05. Item number 5 is the study session items. Direction to 5.1, direction to staff regarding Coachella Indio Transfer Station expansion, draft facility operations and lease agreement, and draft agreement for disposal of solid waste in FY 25-26 budget.
Good morning. Sarah Toyota, Environmental Programs Coordinator. Today for the study session, I'm going to go over the background very quickly and then introduce some of the new proposals and then look ahead toward the budgeting for the upcoming budget for this year. So very quickly, in the last couple of years, the JPA has been working on 2 basic issues that are coming up, and one is the expiring agreements, most notably the master lease agreement that is between the JPA and the County of Riverside. And that lease agreement expires in 2026, and when that expires, it basically gives the JPA the freedom to either move the transfer station, to take another 25-year lease, or purchase the land at market value. And so the JPA directed staff to look into other areas where we might locate a new transfer station. And we worked with Tetra Tech, and we looked at a couple places, but nothing. Each of the parcels that we found had their own challenges, and then there were also considerations with the permitting. One of the best things about where the transfer station is located now is that it's already permitted to be a transfer station. So at the what it came down to was that the JPA leaned more towards staying where we are now and looking at either a 25-year lease or purchasing the land. Then on top of that, the JPA moved all of the agreements so that they would expire at the same time, so we could look at everything together. The other thing is aging infrastructure. Last year, Burtech gave a presentation to the JPA and basically outlined the growth in the cities. The current transfer station has been in operation for 25 years. And basically the growth from the cities is going to outgrow what this transfer station can process in the next few years. So now I'd like to bring up some of the new proposals that we have for the study session today. First is the transfer station expansion. basically, this expansion designed by Burtech it's designed for the next 30 years. It's a huge increase in square footage from a little over 14,000 to over 40,000. It increases the tipping floor from over 9,000 to 37,000, over 37,000 square feet. And right now, the current transfer station is permitted at 1,100 tons per day. And this would allow the station to be re-permitted at 3,000 tons. So again, it's meant to last for the next 30 years. Also, this transfer station is going to be built, or it would be built next to the current station. That means basically that there wouldn't be any disruption in the service. We would continue to use the old one while they built the new one right next to it, and then just move the material over when it's done. It would be fully enclosed.
So would we go from, so would we keep the old one as well, and then in total we would have, what is that, 45,000 capacity for the thing?
Is the old one, is the capacity, yeah, okay, yes. We're not saying to take down the current transfer station, so it would be an actual expansion. And most of the construction details would be written into the lease agreement. So the lease agreement is a 30-year term lease agreement that would run to July 1st, 2055. It sets a not-to-exceed cost, which right now, the dollars would be a little over $10,700,000. It sets the construction schedule, and also in the lease agreement, it sets service components of the gate fee. Now, basically what that means is that this is the current gate fee here. This is all of the components that go into making it. If you look at the facility component, it's at 91 cents, and it's been there for several years. It's not part of the CPI adjustments. So if basically we did nothing, then that would remain at 91 cents. Everything else is triggered through an adjustment through a CPI. And right now, that CPI is set to the Los Angeles Riverside San Bernardino CPI. Okay, if we took the agreements as they are proposed, then here on the left side, you still see basically where the transfer station components are right now. But the facility component goes up from 91 cents per these agreements in the first year to $2.08, and then eventually in the next year to $4.64, and that's where it would stay. It's still not subject to the CPI adjustments, but that would be the main increase for the facility. The operating components, the lease components, they're all set in the lease agreement. So they would be set to these, right now, to these amounts. The transport component would go up to $18. The operating component would go up $1 on top of the CPI for the next 2 years after the agreements are approved. The disposal component would stay the same. This is kind of a way of trying to keep things sort of incrementally going higher. So the disposal cost would stay the same. However, Burtech is asking that the CPI be changed from the Riverside County San Bernardino CPI to water, trash, and sewer. And they did an analysis over about 14 years, and the average for the San Bernardino CPI was 2.9%, and the water, sewer, trash was 4.4%, and they felt that that was more realistic of an adjustment each year. Keeping in mind that this is the gate fee. So for every dollar that this increases, it roughly translates to about 10 cents in the actual waste rates. But this slide is meant to kind of give you an idea of the way the proposals are written right now. This is the effect in estimation, what the gate fee would become. There's also a new waste disposal agreement proposed. It's also a 30-year term. This is the one that sets the disposal rate, and it would keep it for the first year at $38.28 where it is now. And it is subject to the CPI adjustments. It would also be changed to water, sewer, trash. And it has in it also what's called a commitment fee. And the master lease agreement between Riverside County and the JPA stipulated that if the JPA moved waste out of Riverside County landfills, that the JPA would have to pay a higher rate, basically an extended lease rate. So it cost more to pay on the lease to move the waste out of Riverside County, which the JPA did, but Burtech picked up that cost and has been paying Riverside County. Because these are designed to be 30-year agreements and facilities, Burtech is also considering or offering what is called a commitment fee, which they would basically take that extended lease payment that they've been paying to Riverside County and paid that to the JPA. You don't see it in the gate fee. It's not part of that. It's completely separate. It would be a commitment fee that would be outside of the gate fee. There's a couple other changes just to keep in mind. Obviously, the county references have been completely removed out of these agreements. It does commit the waste to the Salton City landfill until July 1st, 2055. The ownership language is a lot like the original lease agreement with the county, where the facility is the contractors, which would be Burtech. They would own it until the agreements expire, and then the JPA could purchase the upgrades for $1. The MSHCP is written into the lease agreement. And I wanted to talk a little bit about timing. Because we did take out all of the references to the county, approving these quickly, we do have an opportunity to get this done for the waste rates July 1st, 2025. But if we did that, we would have the agreements pretty close to where they are now, and that would ultimately mean that the JPA would be purchasing the land. It would be very difficult to write the county back into all of this the way the agreements are written now. So it sets the purchase of the land over the lease. It does increase the JPA budget, which could be important when we look at the budgeting for next year. And then the agreements would have to be approved. We'd have to move pretty quickly to get this on the July 1st rates, trash rates of this year. On the other hand, if we wait another year, obviously construction would be delayed. We would be up against the deadlines. There wouldn't be any more, we can think about this. We'd have to make a decision at that point. And then, these are 30-year agreements, so understandably there should be some diligence. I should mention that these agreements have not yet been through legal review, and we do not yet know the cost of the land. We have talked to Riverside County. They have appraisers up there working on it, but I don't know when that will come in. They don't have to give us an actual appraisal until August, if they really wanted to do that. But they are working on it. I should also mention that the way this transfer station expansion would work, we needed an extra almost an acre of land due to a fault. So we talked to Riverside County. They didn't even blink. They were like, okay, we'll just add that to the appraisal. So they're working on that for a total cost of land that would make this work. What's up there now is just under 15, so it would be just under 16.
Does it allow us to
So think of other potential expansions. So for example, a MRF.
I don't think there's enough land up there to put a MRF. We're not purchasing enough land to do more facilities. I mean, Burtech's they can be pretty,
Does the county have any more land that they want to sell to us, potentially?
we have not asked that.
Should we?
We're happy to.
That would be a good idea.
So there's okay. Well, we could look into it. I'm happy to do that. It doesn't
hurt us.
right. Yeah. I mean, they're not done, so why not? Okay. All right, looking forward. So this is the budget from last year. And you can see that over the years, the JPA has lowered the disbursements in order to basically increase the unrestricted fund amounts. And the reason for that originally was to purchase the land. So we're looking at that roughly $1 million. We have basically two large payments coming up, and one would be the MSHCP back fees, and the other is the land. So the back fees, the estimate, total estimate will be around $650,000 to pay those back fees. The rest could be put to the land, and then there's another year before that payment is actually due. But we do need some direction on how you want to move forward with this. There is the possibility that we could add the cost of the land to the gate fee, pay the MSHCP fee, and then add the cost of the land to the gate fee, or we could consider redirecting those disbursements to paying for the land. Burtech has agreed, at least for the land that we're looking at right now, that if needed, they would pay that, and then the JPA could pay them back. And that would be, like for instance, if these were completed by July 1st, it would increase the amount of funding that we could put toward that land. The other options are to instead keep that for the land and increase the MSHCP back fee from $1 to $1.25 and pay that off over time, or you can review paying the MSHCP back fees in general. But staff is looking for some direction on how you want that budget to come back next year. And that is all I have for the presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the JP members?
Yes. Can you remind me, what's the cost of the purchase of the land?
We don't know. Yeah. The county has appraisers up there right now, but we don't know what the cost will be.
I like the idea of adding the cost of the land to the gate fee. I think it's something that, if we're moving to be completely independent of the county, I think it's a good idea that we act like a real true JPA. That's what we are in an authority, and so, just like we pick up our fees for different costs, this is a cost, that we can ultimately factor in long term so that we can pay ourselves back for the land. I'm assuming 15 acres that's already entitled and doesn't have any, it's not like we're going to go in there and have to do a huge environmental study, et cetera, but I think we're going to make out well in the long term. I mean, my only thing is because, there has been ideas in the past of maybe even adding a MRF, or looking at other things. Does it make sense to put it all in one location? And it may not be a bad thing. Now, I will say this, that the land behind it, the tribe pretty much picked all of that up now. So that whole area is kind of, it's either slated for solar development or tribal development. So for us, it's one of those things where if there's a location to put some things, this might fit well. And because you're going to have, your neighbor's going to be a solar field potentially. So in terms of impact to the community, et cetera, I'm not sure that the solar field, the solar trusts are going to complain. So just let's think through this, in terms of an opportunity, and then really position this agency for the next 30 years on how growth can occur. So that's something that we should think about as well.
Yeah, I think the mayor's correct on that gate fee, and seeing how we can recuperate the cost of the land, but also what does that look like for expansion in the future as well, right? And this is one expansion, but in 30 years you're gonna see another increase, and how do you continue that and make sure you grow? In the MSHCP So it'll go to pay back what we owe them, right? And then moving forward, it'll have the continued funding that's every single cycle, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I don't want to rehash it, but I'm going to point something out. So the original MSACP gate fee was meant for, the transfer of trash into Riverside County's land disposal. But if you look at this agreement, it's a 30-year agreement to the Salton Sea. So they don't have an MSACP at the Salton Sea. But we've agreed, because we're good people, that we're going to go ahead and continue to fund the critters, even though we're not using the trash here. So they're just we're not using the landfills here. So that's one of the things that we should be aware, you all should be aware.
So if we're incorporating the gate fee, the land price into the gate fee, do we still need that 125 for the payback?
No.
Okay.
No, we would use the reserve funding, the unrestricted reserve, to pay that off.
Gotcha.
And whatever 0% interest loan Burtech wants to make us over 30 years, that'd be awesome too. Sure, we could work that out, right, Frank? That'd be great. We're going to be long-term partners, 30 years.
Is there any chance for I want to get staff's comments on looking at that added expansion for a potential MRF there? And do we need to have that decision now before we go into this agreement, or is that something that we can still figure out in the next meeting?
I think we could still figure that out. I mean, we would need to possibly, we talk a little bit with the county. I need to also talk with Burtech, and because they know a little bit more about the fault lines, and we need to know if Riverside County, what they're willing to work with, or what is workable up there. I mean, it sits on a landfill, so there could be other limitations that we're just not aware of yet.
And just to be clear, so Burtech will take the expense of building out the new transfer facility. And then at the end of the 30 years, we buy it for $1. So are they building it for us and operating it, and then, or are we building it and then leasing it to them?
No, they would own it. According to the agreements right now, they would own that until the agreements expire.
Okay.
So it would be theirs. And most of the costs will be put into the gate fee through the facility components and operating components and all of that to run it.
Okay, but in terms of the financing, they're going to pay that. They're financing it out.
Yes.
And then what's the lease rate to us?
According to, the lease rate,
So we own a piece of property. They're building something on our land. Is there a lease rate?
yes, there is still the lease agreement or the lease payment. That is in the gate fee. So let me go back here. The lease
So 'cause it's
payment.
that first slide.
Yeah.
Because what's happening, right? I mean, that lease payment used to go to the county before.
No, that is completely different. Right now, the JPA gets a lease payment, and right now it is at $8.62. It's subject to the CPI adjustments, and that is what goes into the budget under basically the disbursements and the revenue for the JPA. That's what that is. The waste, the commitment fee would be completely different. It doesn't go on the gate fee. It's a payment that kind of in the background, Burtech has been paying to the county for several years now, but they would just pay that to the JPA. It would be on top of the lease payment.
Okay.
They're not connected at all.
But in terms of, we used to pay a lease to the county, right? To have this facility on the county land.
Yeah, like $1 a year. So the lease payment to the county for us was, or for the JPA, was very minimal.
Okay. Make it $2 then.
For the change in the CPI, Are there any concerns with staff for that change increasing? And how would that impact us?
Staff doesn't have too many concerns about that. It is a little over a percentage, and I have a hard time arguing that a waste transfer station shouldn't be subject to a waste CPI. It seems reasonable.
So you did mention that there should be an increase to the JPA budget in the next fiscal year. Do you think that, how would that look like for both agencies, right, that increase?
If these agreements were to, if you were to approve these quickly, yes, there would be a pretty good bump in the JPA budget. We haven't run those numbers. We really wanted to see at this point if we were on the right track, if this is what the JPA commissioners were willing to look at, their long agreements, and if so, then we can run numbers for that. We do know that it will be an increase to the JPA budget. That's just for the lease payment. It would not even include the secondary commitment fee.
This is just a study session, so whatever agreements, we'll probably meet in another month to approve them. Yeah.
Any other comments?
No, I like it. I think it gives us a control, right? And then we got a partner long-term that'll be building it out at their cost, and then we'll buy it in a year, or 30 years, whatever the term is, and we'll have a facility. We should, because it's easier to plan for depreciation now than, 25 years. So maybe we want to take, 2% of whatever or call it 5%, and then just kind of over the course of the 30 years, just kind of put that away in anticipation that we're going to have some improvements to be made at the end of the 30 years, right? That's not to say that, we can work something out with Bertic later on, but at least let's plan for it. That way we can have some reserve budget or whatever that looks like.
Yeah, we're happy to write that into the next budget to build back up that reserve.
Yeah.
So then, the timing, if the commissioners are okay with these agreements in general, we can finalize them and bring them back. Would you want them in a timeline that's more or less ready for this year's budget, July 1st, 2025?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think having that timeline so that we can have a 7/1 effective date would be good. Especially, you don't want to wait a whole another year, and costs of building stuff might double by that time now. So.
Okay, that sounds great. And then for the cost of the land, to look at putting that into the gate fee, correct? Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I do agree with that 5% contingency for depreciation of assets as well.
Absolutely.
But whatever that amount you guys
Yeah.
decide that's reasonable, right? And in terms of
The overall budget.
over the overall 30 years, because at the end of the lease, we're going to have to figure this out, in terms of, what do we need, So let's plan for it today.
Absolutely.
No other comments on item 5.1? No? Okay, we'll move on to commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments?
I have one, and I wanted to see because I know there's some things going on at the federal level with the EPA, and they might be rolling back some restrictions, stuff like that. So I know in the past we've done some business with Desert View, where some of our waste ended up at the Desert View power plant in Mecca being burned there. And I know there's a lot of concerns from the community there that there wasn't, regulations just weren't being followed. And we saw that, in the EPA investigations. I know they've been closed down for almost a year, but I'm just anticipating, if they were to come back into business, and we're doing business with them, and that's affecting the air quality there. So I wanted to see in the next meeting, could we have some kind of presentation to see if when we are involved in business with Desert View, what does that look like? And in the future, what do we want that to look like?
Oh, I didn't know that we were involved. I thought all of our trash just went to the Salton Sea, but maybe there's something that I don't know.
I think it's some of the recyclable materials running up there.
Wood.
Those would have to be green materials or organics because it was a combustible facility. So none of the waste would have gone there, but some of the organics may have.
It's just something we should note, though, that the cities benefit from any agreement through CVAG because they do the street sweeping program for us, et cetera. So that's kind of how that works, where that facility transfers money to the county transfers it to CVAG, and they do a bunch of street sweeping, et cetera. But yeah, the facility's been, it's sitting idle, and it has not been decommissioned. It's sitting idle, so it can start up again as soon as they have a power purchasing agreement. So, but in terms of that facility actually being decommissioned, that's not what's happening. It's just idle at this point.
No, one want to see that. So I don't have any comments. So I'm gonna adjourn the meeting at 9:34, and then the next Coachella Indio Waste Transfer Station JP will be within a month or so. Okay, so sometime in April, you'll schedule that with where it's at. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So we adjourned at 9:35.